So our second panel is called Growing Talent, Training the Next Generation of Professional Growers. As the Canadian cannabis industry continues to mature, the availability of highly skilled professional cultivators become even more crucial. In this panel, we will talk about how to build a grower workforce that will drive forward the Canadian cannabis space and also the global cannabis space. First, I'd like to introduce you to our panel of experts. So in alphabetical order, we first have Deepak Anand. He is the CEO of Materia Ventures, which is a medical cannabis and pharmaceutical company that works with cannabis suppliers, government officials, healthcare providers, and retailers around the world. Welcome, Deepak.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Next up, we have Alison McMahon, who is the founder and CEO of Cannabis at Work, which provides recruitment services, training, and HR consulting for the industry. Hi, Alison.
Hello.
And of course, we have Rathi Param, who is the Dean and Head of the Cannabis Program Faculty at North American College of Pharmaceutical Technology in Toronto. She is also president and founder of the International Medical Cannabis Association. Hi, Rathi.
Hi, nice meeting you all.
Hi, welcome, welcome. So before we get started here, I want to put up a poll for you, the attendees, to give our panelists here a sense of the different training backgrounds our grower audience has here. So we'll put that poll up right here. So we want to know where you acquired your training in cannabis cultivation. Is it through post-secondary cannabis program? Have you transitioned from horticulture or agriculture? Have you received on-the-job training? Maybe through a co-op or through an apprenticeship at an LP? Or maybe you're self-taught and you've been teaching yourself how to grow cannabis in your own home for decades. And we put other there as in case we missed anything. So while you guys are answering those questions, I want to remind you that if you have any questions or comments, you have a question box at the right-hand side of your screen under your GoToWebinar control panel. We'll be checking those lists of questions at the end of our after we're done talking. We'll have a question period and we'll go through as many of those questions as we can. Here are looks like we have the results. Most are self-taught, 44%, but it looks like there's quite a bit of diversity in training here as well. So going back to our panelists, Alison, I wanted to start with you as sort of the HR and recruitment expert of our panel. What does do you see, looking at the audience poll there, do you see similar breakdown for current growers in the workspace today?
Yeah, I mean, I think we really see diversity that I'm not surprised to see the polling responses there in terms of a lot of individuals who had a passion for cannabis and were self-taught in that, whether that was from kind of the legacy market or just otherwise. I think we definitely see people coming in from other horticulture, agriculture verticals, and then have seen the rise in the last few years of some of the post-secondary education, as well as obviously LPs are going to be doing on-the-job training, I think especially when it comes to some of the more entry-level grower roles.
So what are LPs looking for right now when you're helping these companies recruit for their cultivation team?
Yeah, again, I think it's a mix, and it really depends on a number of things. I think, you know, as we all know, the way that facilities are designed and the different approaches to growing really vary LP to LP. And so, you know, I think a couple of things that dictate the answer to this is the facility type. Like, is this an indoor facility? Are we talking about, you know, some sort of large scale greenhouse versus an outdoor cultivation site? These are all going to impact the type of skills that our LPs are looking for, in addition to the actual physical size of that operation. I think other things that are important are like what's the customer segment that they're after? Are they growing for a medical market and patients, or are they growing for a recreational market? And what type of product are they focused on? You know, are they focused on growing high quality craft flower, or are they growing a product that's going to be an input into an extraction process? And then location. I mean, we're you know, they're Canadian LPs, but when we start to look at some of the other markets that are developing internationally, they may be looking for different skill sets. So I think those are all things that matter in terms of this question. And ultimately, the answer in terms of my experience is that it's a mix. Sometimes we are working with an LP that they're really looking to bring on a very experienced cannabis grower who understands genetics and can really contribute to growing a high quality product. Sometimes, you know, we're looking for, so for example, for a greenhouse, LPs that they very much need the talent of somebody who's previously worked in that greenhouse environment, because there's certain factors that go into growing in that environment that are unique. And again, in some cases, it's looking for people who've worked in that other horticulture, those other verticals, vegetable growing or otherwise. And don't necessarily want somebody who's worked in cannabis before. Like, they want somebody who's a bit more fresh to the industry and who they can train. So we really see a variety in terms of what LPs are looking for based on their own circumstances, which I think is good news in terms of it creates more opportunities for growers who have different backgrounds to enter into the industry or to move around within the industry.
I skipped a step here. For people who don't know, what does Cannabis at Work do?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for asking. So at Cannabis at Work, our main focus is on connecting talent to great companies. So essentially, we do recruitment and headhunting services specifically for the cannabis industry. In addition to that, we run the largest compensation survey in the industry. So we benchmark over 65 different roles and collect salary data on those, and then publish that report back into the industry. So we're actually in the process of running that currently for the 4th year in a row, and have about 50 LPs that are participating. So it's going to be our largest data set yet. And then we also are the hosts of an ongoing industry networking event called the Roll Call. So that's what we do at Cannabis at Work.
In your experience, Allison, is there a skills gap? What I mean is there a high demand for these workers, and are there enough workers to go around?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and definitely, you know, I think a scenario that's been changing a lot, just given the kind of market correction that the industry has been going through. So if I look back to 2015, when I started in this industry, and you know, through the crazy growth spurt into 2018, I would say we definitely had a skill shortage on the grower side, and a very, very high demand for that type of talent. I think when you fast forward to today, obviously we've seen some pretty significant layoffs in the industry since, let's say, you know, coming up on about a year ago, like starting August, September of last year is when we saw a lot of that activity starting. And my team crunched the numbers back in May, and at that time it was about 30% of the industry that had been laid off. And not all of those are production or growing roles. There's a lot of marketing and other ancillary kind of roles that were caught up in those layoffs. But so I think there was a very high demand and not a large pool of growers previously. I think that over time, we, as an industry, we've developed that talent pool, and there's more of those people in the market that have had years of experience now, and you know, probably many that are job hunting currently. And so I think that means that the talent pool is more developed than ever. Now, I think, though, that when we talk about probably very senior growers that have a career of experience, but have also successfully transitioned into the regulated environment, much like the panel that we just saw prior to this one. I think there's still a relatively small pool of those types of people that just have that level of experience.
Rathi, I want to get your opinion on this because this year a lot of companies have, as Allison mentioned, have started laying off hundreds of their workers, many of whom are in production and cultivation. From your perspective at Pharma College, how are the students concerned about their job prospects, for example? Has the college been affected in the pandemic?
Yes, definitely. I mean, according to our research and survey we did in the past, um, like there are companies they laid off, they had massive laid off, and people are unemployed. But on the other hand, we can see there are many starting LPs. They are contacting us, and they are asking if we have any qualified graduates to be in this role. And then as part of our program, we always have a production exposure at the end of the training program. So we normally provide internship for students to be in the production environment. And then we are working with Alison. We are working with a number of recruiters, and you are more than welcome to contact us. If you need pool of talents.
Excuse me, Rathi. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to check your audio there. Do you mind coming closer?
To... You have a problem?
Just a little bit. I think I just want you to come a little bit closer to your laptop.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, a lot better. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, students are concerned in terms of traveling to different province and different areas to start their job, and also due to COVID-19, many employers I can see that they are putting freezing on their hiring process. So I would say this scenario, this is a temporary situation, and I'm hoping the situation will change over a period of time. And then students, they always have concern because when they see many companies are laying off, pool of employees of their company, they feel they're really worried, how they are going to get into the field. So the what we understood like from the industry is sometimes companies laying off people as part of restructuring their company, or sometimes it is happening due to the mismanagement too, and it is happening a lot in the industry. So it's not something like people they don't need employees, and then they sometimes they are trying to get the best fit for the LPs, and as part of this process hiring and laying off it is happening parallel to each other. But I would say the scenario may change after this COVID pandemic, and then we can see definitely some small LPs or startup companies they are approaching, and then they are trying to get the best fit for their company. So I think that's where the students they need to look into it, and definitely they are concerned. Yeah.
From the academic side, what are some considerations you have to make to build a program and to build a curriculum that prepares these students for the workforce, for these commercial grow rooms?
Yeah, I mean, as the first Canadian graduate diploma provider in this cannabis industry, we consider a number of factors when we actually design the program. First thing, we actually look into the regulatory gaps, because there are students coming with even 20 years, 30 years experience of they are claiming they have experience, okay, but do all they know all these regulatory standard and regulatory requirements? So definitely we look into the regulatory requirements in various aspects, and we also did market research to find out where the current cannabis industry is standing right now, and what is their skilled workers requirement. So based on their requirement, we see, okay, these are the area we need to put more effort in terms of, creating more, skilled workers. So we did, come up with the curriculum. It is, even though we have a production technology program, it is not it is not 100% focusing on growing. It is focusing on all the technology aspect of the industry. So we developed a technology-driven program where we incorporated, the skills they needed to work in that space, as well as we incorporated various, regulatory standards. Also, cannabis industry, we are incorporating many standards and regulations from various aspects of the industry. It comes under agriculture, food industry, medical device, pharmaceutical sectors. So all these regulated industries can actually closely work with the cannabis industry. So the regulation, when we talk about regulation and standard, sometimes we need to incorporate from these regulation and standard from the regulated industry. So we heavily depends on pharmaceutical standards, and by nature we are a pharmaceutical institution. So we try to maintain all our training program up to the pharmaceutical standard, agriculture standard, and also food industry standard too. And apart from that, we, as part of the training program, we want to incorporate the actual touch in the industry. So what we consider, okay, how we can actually give the production exposure to the students. So we tie up with LPs and we try to, connect them with the LPs as having a field trip there and having industrial workshops, as well as, giving solid 100 hours internship to work in this environment. So many LPs, they love to, work with the students, and they like to, get the, fresh students so that they can easily train them. Okay, so these are the things we considered, when we actually developed the program. As well as, this program is assessed by ministry as well as third-party program assessor and many industrial experts, who they get involved in developing this program.
Deepak, I want to ask you as well, because you have experience in the academic world as well as the professor for Canada's first cannabis course at Kwantlen Polytechnic. I would imagine that in 2018 there weren't many models or templates that you could build your curriculum off of.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for that question. I mean, very early on, what we saw in the industry was there was no real formal education. There was, unlike what we have now, we had the inverse problem at the outset of the industry, where there was a lot of people that were cultivating cannabis or that were growers, but didn't actually have the knowledge or the experience from a regulatory perspective. But one of the things that Health Canada did was, it became one of the first countries globally to have a federal system around cultivation of cannabis. And so whilst a lot of people had been in sort of the legacy market, they hadn't really fully been aware of or knew some of the regulations. And so what KPU did at the time was we developed a program that actually helped people understand how the different aspects of the regulations actually affect the day-to-day jobs. And so, we saw enormous uptake, not only from Canadian kind of players, but because the course was online, we saw a lot of international kind of people look at this. And that's the one aspect I want to talk about. Allison, spoke about sort of, a lot of people moving away from the industry. And whilst that's true and quite unfortunate in Canada, I feel like one of the things that Canada has done really well, and we're not talking about this enough, is we have developed a very strong pool of talent. And there's a lot of that talent that can actually be exported. So, I mean, we as a business operate on the European continent, and we're having the same problem. We can't find knowledgeable people that understand regulations, and regulations are, different, but not different to a perspective that they don't exist at all compared to where they were in Canada. So I feel like Canada has this massive opportunity to export knowledge and talent from here, and it's great that we're all doing different aspects. I know Allison's been very involved in the international side. I know there's a few other education training programs that are out there, but I feel like that's something that we can definitely harness and leverage quite a bit more.
So we hear, can you talk a little bit more about that potential for a human capital export? Like, what are some of the countries that are looking to Canada for their workforce?
Yeah, it's Jen, it's not too different from the countries that are looking at sort of, importing cannabis. So if you look at where we're exporting cannabis to, it's by and large Europe. So Germany, is one country that's certainly looking. Israel is another country. They have a lot of cultivators in Israel, but they don't have enough people that understand the regulatory side of things. Australia is opening up. Thailand now has a program. So I mean, there's all of these countries are either looking for growers or cultivators, or on the flip side, pharmaceutical manufacturers that understand cannabis, whether it be on the cultivation side, whether it be on the extraction side, or whether it actually be on the product manufacturing side. And here you've got people that are not only trained, but have also gotten a lot of hands-on experience. I think one of the things that Canada did very early on was we had this onslaught of product that we needed to get out for legalization, whether it be dried cannabis product, whether it be oil products, or whether it be now cannabis 2.0 products. There's been a group of, a talent pool here in Canada that has been subject to not only understanding regulations, not only getting things off the ground really quickly, but also developing them. So you've got a lot of people here that are extremely knowledgeable. We've been legal in this country for several years now, and to try and find that offshore or overseas just doesn't exist. So these 30% of the workforce that Allison spoke about earlier that's been laid off, I see a lot of them actually playing a role internationally.
Allison, did you want to add about your work internationally as well? What have you seen in terms of Canada's role in the global cannabis market?
Yeah, very much building off of what Deepak has shared already. I think that we're seeing a need for companies to bring in, I think oftentimes what we're seeing is, at least at this stage, is more senior level positions. So heads of different departments, that there's a motivation to Canada specifically because of that experience in the regulatory market, and that we've been through this cycle of legalization, and essentially those companies, which are very capital intensive organizations that have typically raised money and have a short runway, they can bring in a Canadian expert who's learned the hard lessons but has knowledge of the regulatory environment and what compliance means. They can bring those people up and really help to scale their operations more quickly, or help to get their license approved more quickly. So definitely seeing demand on an ongoing basis there. And I think it's really, so far, it's really focused on Canada. Of course, there's a lot of great talent in the United States as well, but as we know, their regulatory environment is not to the same standard as ours is. And so there's less of an interest often, I find, in talent that's very US based, opposed to, again, that Canadian environment.
Rathi, what about from your perspective at the Pharma College? Is there a pathway for students to transition into a potentially international job and a job overseas?
Yeah, I just want to make a couple of points clear here. We actually get students from various countries as international students. At this point, we are getting students from Italy, South America, South Africa, you name it, even from Mexico. Students are coming from Japan. Okay, so these students, they are coming with the intention to learn the right thing, and they are seeing Canada as a role model for them, and they want to learn the regulatory framework in Canada. Either they want to learn and go back to their country to, develop the business. And more than half of the, international students, all these international talents, they want to start business in Canada. Okay, so I don't see people going out of Canada to other countries to work. I mean, maybe a small percentage I can consider, but most of them, they are coming to Canada with the intention of, starting their own, avenue in this particular field. Even like recently, we already produced a number of batches in this training program, and our program customized students to learn how to set up their facility, how to design their facility, and how to do the cultivation and as well as processing according to the regulatory standards.
Excuse me, Rathi, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to, your audio was cutting out a little bit more. I wonder if you can phone in and maybe the audio will be a little bit better that way.
If I could jump in, I'd be curious,
Sure.
like Deepak, are you seeing in Europe like any post-secondary or any meaningful like education programs emerge in those markets yet?
No, I mean, one of the things that we are seeing is, where Canada started, we're seeing a lot of physician education. We're seeing some pharmacist education, just given how medical the programs are, at least on the medical cannabis side. We're starting to see some of that happen, but not so much on the workforce training side. We're not seeing very much. The one thing I know is McGill, had a partnership or has a partnership with the government of Malta on the international side. So I know they're looking at doing some training in Malta specifically, but like even for Germany, there is not very much that's happening from a skills training perspective. And I think that's actually a pretty big opportunity for both, players in the current market that are providing education, as well as opportunities for Canadians that might be laid off and might have sort of been moved away from the cannabis industry to take advantage of and really look globally.
While we wait for Rathi to come back online with us, why don't we start to pivot with our question and answer period. There's a great question here by Michael Lockman about the career path towards bringing young growers into a path to become a master grower. Allison, you said that there's a high demand for those highly skilled professionals. So is there a path where a young grower can take, a paved path a young grower can take to get promoted and get those higher level jobs?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that within a licensed producer, I think especially one, this would apply regardless, but there might be more opportunity in a slightly larger one. But I think coming in at kind of a entry level position, like a grow tech type of role, and then working your way through all of the different areas of growing. And I think this is, again, depending on how the licensed producer has structured their grow team, but making sure that you're going through the process of care of the plants, but also pest management and irrigation, and kind of getting that well-rounded set of skills. And then I think moving up into kind of the, I guess, more experienced master grower type of role that we're talking about also includes eventually getting exposure to genetics and even like the production planning side of it. So not only now just really kind of focused more narrowly on caring for the plants and making sure that they're healthy and the yields are there, but starting to think more broadly about the business. So how does this all have to play together in terms of potentially multiple grow rooms that are in production? What are the metrics around cost per gram and some of these other business KPIs? And I think all of that becomes really important, as well as I think that that real passion for the plant and understanding where maybe some of those limits are in terms of how far can we actually push plants to certain yields. And so I think that there's a lot there that goes into the knowledge and skills that some of these very experienced growers have. I think also, frankly, some of these growers who were self-taught or were working in the legacy market had more room to experiment with things in the past. They might have had access to different genetics that someone coming up purely through a regulated track might be a challenge, is to kind of add those additional skills and that experience into the mix. Perhaps some of that is done through personal growing and just a personal interest in the plant. But I definitely think that there's that track that exists within our license holders in the system. And then I guess like anything, it's like that additional passion that probably paves the way to that like really excellent master grower in the end.
Jean, if I can just add in just a quick comment here is, just piggybacking on what Allison just said was, one of the big things is there's a bit of an art and a science here, right? Like, you look at Master Chef, you look at Master Grower, not everything can be taught. I just want people to be cognizant of that as well. Yes, you can go to school for a number of things. You can actually learn a number of things, but there is a bit of an art here, and there are a number of growers that have been growing very well. They don't need some sort of degree or certificate to call themselves a master grower. There's certainly that art element that plays in. So I just wanted to touch base really quickly on that as well, is let's not lose sight. I don't think any company on the regulated side is looking for someone with a degree to hang on the wall that says you're a master grower. I think that craft and that art element is going to play a big role as well.
I just want to check in with Rathi here. How are we doing?
I already joined. I've been waiting.
Okay, great. Well, I do have an audience question here for the academia side, so hopefully we can get you to answer this one. This is from Brandon Yet. With such scarce literature on cannabis in academia, specifically scientific papers, where do you source creditable information from in order to create course content? So what are the textbooks and what are the resources that you're building curriculums for the cannabis program?
Of course, in terms of the curriculum development, the using the right references, it is all over the places. Okay, but definitely, we need to, every part of their training, we incorporate the Cannabis Regulation Act. So it is one of the major, reference, people need to look into it, but everyone knows that. Okay, but apart from this, like, we have a list of, textbooks written by various authors in this industry, and if someone, if anyone needs those information, we can actually share those information, and I can give my contact information. They can email me and I can share those information to them. But there are various, textbooks, we are using, and these are, written by highly qualified, experienced, expert teams in the industry. And as an institution, we are also, developing and, validating certain process as part of the research and development process. Under International Medical Cannabis Association, we have the R&D license, and we are actually, creating evidence-based data to come up with reference for the industry in terms of from the academic sector as well as from the research aspect too. So we are in the process of developing a lot of material and and then validated material for the training as well as to we are trying to use this information to guide the industry and standardize the industrial process. And then if you look at my background, I'm heavily involved with validation process. Technically I'm a validation scientist, and so I heavily involved with developing validation program, quality management system for cannabis industry, and currently in terms of helping them to overcome their process, and also there are a lot of barriers at this point because everyone is trying to learn the right thing and trying to implement the right thing, but we are getting employers from starting level up to employers those are leading in the industry, but the bottom line is everyone, they want to learn the right thing and they want to have a proper reference for anything they are making decision, like in terms of integrating their process and the system up to the industrial standard. So we do have pool of reference material, and I cannot just name it like just like that. I need to put together and share those information. Anyone need it, please feel free to contact me. Yeah.
Maybe if I can add in, I can share some information in terms of materials that we have used in the past. So, one of the things that I want to highlight is there's a lot of information available out there. It depends on which subset of the industry you're in. I'll give a couple of examples. So if you look at the cultivation side, one of the things that we did was there's been a cannabis grow Bible that's been revised multiple times. It's peer reviewed. It teaches people just basic genetics, plant science, specific to cannabis. And so, you use that as one text reference. If you look at the scientific side of things and the product formulation side of things, there's enough textbooks on manufacturing of either pharmaceutical products like capsules or tinctures or sprays that exist in mainstream society with respect to a variety of different formulations. And it's just making sure you balance the Cannabis Act with a lot of these other things that do exist out there. That's really how you kind of triangulate that information. And to a big extent, being some of the first country that's really at the forefront of this globally, at least the first G7 country to do it on a legalized basis, we're actually writing a lot of these textbooks as well as we go along. So it's that balance between the two.
Yeah, and also just to comment, for example, with I know like Kwantlen, Deepak can speak to the early days. I'm speaking more to the last couple of years, but I know that their approach to building out some of the courses that were the newer courses they were developing in their pipeline was they would fly a room of experts from the cannabis industry like to their facility and have them go through a pretty robust like course development process. So they were really leveraging the expertise that was in the industry to make sure that they were developing curriculum that was meaningful to the industry and that was going to provide that right technical training into the space as well.
Yeah, what I'm saying that in addition to what Deepak and Alison said, there are some solid references available in the related sector, I would say from pharmaceutical industry. We can actually extract a lot of information from ICH guidelines. And these guidelines, will help LPs to set up system and process in place, and especially when it comes to medical cannabis process. And in addition, there are few other regulatory guidelines we can use, which is another one is called SUBAC. SUBAC is scale of post-approval changes. So this is one of the guidelines we normally use to actually scale up the production level, up to certain extent, up to the EU, European good manufacturing practices. So at this point, unfortunately, we don't have a solid guidelines in the cannabis industry, but definitely we can extract information from related sectors. And we do have all those references. We can use HACCP, we can use state food Canadian regulation, and so these are some of the related regulations we can put together, and it could be a good references for the industry as well if they want to cross check, learn about different aspects of the industry. I don't know whether this is what you're asking, but I lost the initial part of your question, so if you need more clarification, ask me.
We have time for one last question, and this is for everyone, but I wanted to ask Alison first about, for those who were part of the massive cuts that happened this year, where should these growers be looking for more opportunities, maybe networking tips?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think following some of the publicly traded companies that are having, strong financial results, if they're looking to that side of the business, is one way to do a bit of homework in terms of what organizations might be good to join versus what there might be more risk involved with kind of some of those larger players. I think there's a lot of really exciting, smaller scale grows that are coming online and getting traction and growing out. I mean, Habitat would be one of those that are really, really exciting. I think having a willingness to potentially relocate is also can be part of success, because sometimes these facilities are not in major cities. So I think networking is obviously a little bit more challenging right now. I think that events like this are great to get connected to people. I think although we don't have the opportunity to kind of meet in person, which can be easier in some cases, I think that the flip side of that is people are more accessible online right now. And so I would say, you know, taking some initiative to reach out to people if they've met through events like this online are a really great opportunity to just reach out to people, start to have conversations, and lean into your own network. I think people often forget, both like on the hiring side and the job seeking side, that sometimes just asking around in their own network, putting those feelers out, can lead to different opportunities.
So I mean, yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I feel like, you know, also there's been a number of people that have really seen what doesn't work at some companies where some people might be, you know, slipping up. What I can say is that whilst there has been a lot of doom and gloom about the industry with respect to where the industry is going, if you look at it from a sales perspective, there's still a number of companies that are either on the rise or are going to make it, and there's still a number of opportunities where you might have seen some companies fail. So I would say to people that are currently looking, you know, feel free to like think outside the box a little bit with respect to, you know, can you start up something of your own? I realize funding at the moment is challenging, but you know, there are a number of companies that are on the upward growth cycle. There are some unique, you know, abilities to be able to raise capital despite everything that's happened in the market. So I would say that people should definitely feel comfortable kind of sharing what doesn't work, because I feel like we've seen a lot of what doesn't work, and there are some skilled people that can see through that and actually realize that if, you know, a certain aspect of the industry, whether it be cultivation as an example, where nobody's done it well to scale, is that an opportunity that, you know, you partner up with a company as an example to say, hey, I've got the skills, the talent, and the resources, and I've done this, and I know what doesn't work, and so now I'm going to apply it with you, whether it be, you know, you start something, you partner with someone, or you work for someone. There's still that opportunity to be able to leverage that and expand on that.
Yeah. Rathi, if you have a 20-second answer to add there about opportunities for growers right now.
Yeah, for growers, I would say, you know, focus on the quality. This is the bottom line. Of course, you know, as a company, as a grower, we have a bottom line, but when we talk about, you know, quality, I would say we need to focus on all kind of quality management system to improve the quality of the product and comply with the regulatory requirements. And as well as, you know, many companies nowadays, you know, they are trying to get European GMP certification, and so in this aspect, you know, there are a lot of gaps between good production practices as well as good manufacturing practices. So growers, you know, they need to understand the gap between the good production practice as well as GMP, and, you know, they need to fill the gap, and, you know, they need to focus on it, and plus, you know, when you're hiring somebody, you know, don't just hire somebody just only based on the credential. Make sure, you know, they can do the job as per the regulatory requirement. So, you know, the actual, you know, the employees, you know, they can actually help you to meet your bottom line. So you need to have not only that you are looking for, you know, the technical skills, you also need to see the, you know, people skills and then soft skills, you know, when you're hiring people to work with you as a team. Otherwise, your team may collapse, and, you know, and that's what happened in the past with some companies. So these are some of the things I would say. And plus, train your employees continuously. You know, of course, you know, people want to start, you know, learn everything on their own, but training through, you know, qualified personnel, this is a regulatory requirement. So they need to train the employees and, you know, keep up with the standard, and you know, keep performing, you know, up to the industrial standard. Yeah.
Thank you, Rathi. I'll have to cut you off there because we are running out of time. So I want to thank all of our expert panelists, of course, for taking the time to talk with us today. Thank you also to those who are watching and for your great questions. We'll be taking a short break, and we come back. Our editor, Marilyn de Guzman, will be hosting a one-on-one interview with our Delta 9 cannabis head grower, Bobby Bain.